into account all factors, global and personal. Raise your hand if you think that you're proud of where you live, in what society, and are happy with most of your daily life. Now raise your hand if you think that we are still far from ideal and are not happy with how and where you live, and perhaps even feel ashamed of the people around you. Our opinions reflect the complexity of the world. Some things we control and others we can't. In this monologue, I would like to touch on the topic of those events and things that seem to be beyond our control, but we continue to emotionally surrender to them. This is the news, history, and of course natural disasters. We can't do anything about it. It doesn't depend on us. That's frightening. But what's even more frightening is to make a change. Many people are worried that nothing will get better because of the current events happening in the world. But the thing is that this is history. Just like many others, I used to be very worried about my future because of the global events happening around. But what if I say that you do have a chance to impact the future? You have an opportunity to make changes. The true realization of it came to me when I first moved to the US. The classes and activities offered in regular high school fascinated me. The job opportunities, even for teens, has amazed me so much. Even as an immigrant from Belarus, I was able to work at 3 different places. In the summer of 2022, I started my career as a food runner at a local pizza place. Of course, it wasn't my only responsibility. I also had to greet customers like a hostess, bring out orders, check on guests, and clean after them. And keep in mind, this is in Nashville, a town in North Carolina, and I still was hired as a 14-year-old girl who hasn't been in the United States for a year at the time. In high school, I was offered a variety of classes. Where I'm from, Belarus, you don't get to choose your classes. You take English, Russian, Belarusian, history, chemistry, and etc. throughout the 11 years of school. While here, I was able to sign up for subjects that I considered to be useful for my future career. For the first time, I was able to feel love for classes that I used to hate in my homeland, such as math, chemistry, and history. Because now, I do it to myself, not forced into them. And classes that you take here have a direct influence on your future and your future career, and on your chances of getting into college. I see so many people not valuing the opportunities they're given on default. Remembering how in Belarus people have to study many times more, having 16 subjects a week, and still end up with nothing in the future, it hurts me to see people here refusing AP or honors classes, giving other people advantage over them in the future education. Of course, good grades and high level of education do not guarantee you an excellent career, but it will insist in your discipline, hard work, and determination. When I was visiting NCSSM, North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, the instructors were showing us their graduates and where they ended up in life. And keep in mind, NCSSM is all about discipline and hard work. It has barely any other benefits besides higher level of classes and programs which are written by professors themselves. Many of the people who graduated from the school ended up being CEOs of big successful companies, scientists who have come up with the treatments, or even flew into space. And it happened not because of the colleges they went to after the graduation. It was a result of the thirst for knowledge. The 21st century. The catastrophes of this short but already so eventful period of time. It would seem like only a quarter of a century had passed, and there are already so many events like Great Recession, 9/11, COVID-19, Haiti earthquake, Iraq War, Russian invasion in Ukraine. And now let's dive into the last century, the 20th. It started with the San Francisco fire, Spanish flu, First World War, followed by the Second, Russian Civil War, and Holodomor. At the same time, the segregation era was progressing on the Western continent, and with the collapse of USSR and HIV epidemic. Spanish flu, from which over 50 million people died. in the period of 1918 to 1920 with no vaccine invented at the time. The discrimination that is hard for me to think about. People of color were not used anymore, but still could not become part of society. They were unaccepted and rejected, given a chance to be free and still restricted. The tragic collapse of USSR that has led to a tremendous increase in the government of mafia and corruption that has forever cut the post-Soviet Union nations from the true democracy. And none of this events has ever hurt people's dreams and goals. People have always pursued, invented, and created. Even though the timeline didn't seem to be a good fit for inspiration, people always have found something to look up to. And this is how progress is happening. People don't just believe in a better future, they make their future better. And this is the reason why we should focus on what's within our control and not let fear of uncontrollable influence our lives. And I still see crowds of people hating the present, where people drive in a new car, a new house, traveling, or working from home. And what do you think? Just 50 years ago, my dad dreamed of a chocolate. And no, he did not live the poverty line. He lived in an average family in USSR on the current territory of the Republic of Belarus. It simply did not exist in his life. Meanwhile, the US was only 5 years past the segregation era. And just 50 years ago, just a few years later, having come here as an immigrant from Belarus speaking Russian, I have a voice on such large-scale platform as TED Talk. I ended up here in 2021, and as an immigrant, I've seen how powerless people can feel under the oppressive regime that has become one of the reasons for my immigration. And not only feel, but also be silenced by the government, as no independent sources of information exist at the time. I witnessed how protests in my homeland were erased. Oh my God. No, it doesn't work. How protests in my homeland were erased from the history with no evidence of sacrifices of the people who stood up against injustice. No foreign sources are engaged in highlighting the real situation, how state disregards the opinion of the people and does not act on their behalf. And as you have guessed, I have not left on my own. My parents were the ones terrified of the reality that they live in. No, they did not complain. They just found ways around it. And I know it wasn't the easiest decision. They are adults. They will never become a part of a society in the new foreign country. But in addition, they will probably never see their parents again. And with the full awareness of the situation, they did it. They did it for their future to be better. And on one occasion, their future turned out to be me and my sister. The sacrifice is what makes changes. And I'm talking about this because apparently this is the problem that few talks about. There's a lot of talk about widespread anxiety and depression, but no one talks about the origin. The origin is that we look up to easy ways. Sorry. It always seemed like we try to optimize our time and resources, but instead of taking notes on how people become successful, we become discouraged by what we see in social medias and generally around. As Brad Austin, an interim director of behavioral health in UFO Health, states, another major factor that influences Gen Z's mental health is the pressure for achievement and success. With the rise of social media, young people are constantly exposed to the images of their peers achieving in their various fields. This creates the sense of competition and pressure to excel, which leads to stress and anxiety. We only see the outcome, and what's unintentionally hidden is the path. If it's successful, famous influencer, we don't see how long it took them to gain the audience. And the most important thing is that we will not be able to feel the way they did because we're scared. What if you're one of the million people who tried and failed? We will never know. And we have as many tries as we need. Just act and don't be scared of the failure. I know it's easy to say, but since moving out, nothing seems to be big of a deal to me. The failure doesn't scare me. And I just put myself into situations like taking challenges in the game and just trying to complete them as well as I can. And what we all need to do, or rather stop doing, is to pass everything through ourselves. Just live in the present without torturing yourself for the events of tomorrow.